They have told you some very simple stories, and they are charming. But if you were not prepared to hear more about the subject, you would not be listening to this. In the 1960s, a writer named Jane Roberts began speaking with a voice that was not her own. Seth, an energy essence, a non-physical intelligence, presented itself through Jane with astonishing clarity and depth, capturing the attention of scientists, psychologists, and philosophers alike. Seth's message was simple, yet revolutionary. You are not who you think you are. You are not bound by a single life, or even by time itself. Your so-called past and future selves are not separate from you. They exist in constant interaction with your present being. Seth turned our ideas of past lives, death, and reincarnation upside down. Through him, we learn that death is not an end, reincarnation is not a linear cycle, and the boundaries between lives are far more fluid than we ever imagined. Memories, intuition, creativity, even your dreams, all may carry the influence of selves you have been or will become. Seth challenges everything we take for granted about life, identity, and the nature of reality, offering a vision where consciousness stretches far beyond the limits of your current life. Here, we present Seth's ideas as he presented them, without reinterpretation, simplification, or distortion. This is Seth on past lives, death, and reincarnation. Consciousness creates form, not the other way around. And not all personalities are physical. But because you are so absorbed in the concerns of daily life, you overlook the part of yourself that knows its powers are far greater than those of your ordinary self. I want you to understand the nature of your inner being, your soul, because it is a focal point of reality, from which other realities emerge. It is not a prisoner of days, weeks, months, or even centuries. Remember, you are a soul now. The soul within you is already perceiving. Its methods of perception are the same as they were before your physical birth, and as they will be after your physical death. The inner part of you, the soul stuff, does not suddenly change its way of perceiving, nor its essential characteristics after physical death. You can discover what the soul is now. It is not something that waits for you at death, nor something you must save or redeem. It is also something that cannot be lost. The phrase to lose or save your soul has been grossly misunderstood and distorted, for the soul is the part of you that is truly indestructible. There is communication between these other realities and your own during your dream states, and a constant interaction between the two systems. Yet when your consciousness seems to escape you, or even to end, these are precisely the points where you have set up psychological and psychic barriers. These are the areas you should explore. Otherwise, you may feel as if your consciousness is trapped within your brain, immobile and constricted, and every lost thought or forgotten memory seems, at least symbolically, like a small death. But this is not the case. The characteristics of consciousness remain the same, whether you are in a body or outside of one. The nature of your consciousness is essentially no different than it is now, even if you are not aware of many of its capabilities. For example, your consciousness is already telepathic and clairvoyant, though you may not realize it. During sleep, when you often assume you are unconscious, you may actually be far more aware than in waking life, simply using abilities you do not recognize as real or valid, and therefore exclude from conscious experience. Consciousness is largely independent of time and space. After death, you are simply aware of the greater capacities that have always existed within you. There is a constant exchange between what you believe is your current self and what you believe are your past and future selves. You and your beings of other reincarnations, or your personalities, are not imprisoned by time. If this were not so, I would not be here speaking to you. Each personality is free. Time has its ends open in all directions. Otherwise, there would be no such thing as probabilities. The actions you take now can aid one of your so-called past personalities. And in the same way, one of your so-called future personalities can appear to help you along the difficult path. Your present actions affect both the future and the past. You must make an effort of imagination to sense these realities, because the intellect alone cannot grasp them. Psychological time is your best method to perceive such truths. You can feel realities that you may not be able to describe in words, for you are far more than the physical brain you now possess. Think of your brain as a spider's web spun around the inner being. This web allows you to develop within the world of space and time, yet it is tenuous, delicate, and held in a precarious balance. Through it, you perceive the world, but your point of view is small, and the garden you see is private. This limited vantage point makes you believe your experience is the whole of reality. Still, your capacity for perception is far greater. Death is not an end. The nature of your consciousness is essentially no different than it is now. The part of you that you consider most precious, your own personality, does not disappear or get lost at death. It is a portion of the soul. It will not be destroyed, erased, or absorbed, nor can it ever be separated. It will continue as part of the larger soul. Your individuality continues to exist. It grows and develops, and it learns after death in the same way it learns now. But this growth depends on realizing that while it is distinct and individual, it is also just one manifestation of the soul. To the extent that it understands this, it learns to unfold creatively and to access the inherent abilities within itself. It might seem simpler to tell you that your individuality continues and leave it at that. But the truth is deeper. The personality you are now, the personalities you have been, and the ones you will become, all in your terms of linear time, are manifestations of your soul. Your soul, the larger consciousness you are part of, is far more creative and miraculous than you suppose. When this is misunderstood or simplified, the vitality of the soul cannot be grasped. The soul holds the wisdom, information, and knowledge of all its personalities. You have access to this knowledge, not only after death, but here and now. Once you realize the true nature of your reality, each personality exists independently within the soul and is free to create and develop. Yet there is intercommunication, and the knowledge of one is available to all. The soul itself is not static. It grows and develops through the experience of its personalities, and it is, to put it as simply as possible, more than the sum of its parts. There are no closed systems in reality. Your perception within the physical world naturally limits your idea of reality because you choose to focus within a particular locale. But consciousness is never a closed system, and any such barriers are illusions. The soul, therefore, is also never closed. Yet when you think of the soul, you often imagine it as unchanging, a psychic or spiritual citadel. Citadels do protect, but they also prevent expansion and growth. You are so afraid for your sense of identity that you resist the idea of the soul as an open system, a powerhouse of creativity that shoots out in all directions. And yet, this is exactly what it is. You are aware of only certain portions of your being. When you die, you simply step out of the framework in which you have been so focused. The inner self continues to exist, and you will still have a form, though not a physical one in your terms. You will find that your consciousness can be used in ways you never imagined, and you will perceive dimensions that were previously hidden. Death is simply a change of focus. It is not an end, but a transformation of awareness. You are as alive after death as you are now, and often more conscious. Many of your unused or ignored abilities become instantly available. There is no point at which your consciousness ceases. The transition called death is easier than birth. Birth requires an immense focus of energy, while death is a release. a freeing of energy and perception. It is not accompanied by fear, unless you have built up fear in your beliefs. Once free of the body, the personality does not feel trapped or limited, but instead experiences expansion and a freedom it always sensed was possible. You realize you are not imprisoned within your skull or your skin, and you begin to experience the greater reality of your being. Dream states are a bridge. Each night when you sleep, you practice a kind of small death, releasing part of your consciousness to explore other realities. This is why death is never unfamiliar. The dream state is therefore excellent preparation for what you call death. After death, the personality is not swallowed up by some universal self. You remain yourself, yet also recognize that you are more than the self you knew in life. You gain access to deeper layers of your being and become aware of your continuity with other lives and experiences. Death is not a punishment, nor is it a reward. It is a natural step in the expansion of consciousness. Nothing of value is lost. The knowledge, abilities, and memories of the life you lived are preserved and become part of the soul's greater experience. You have each lived other existences, and that knowledge is within you, though you are not consciously aware of it. Your so-called past lives are not buried, dead, or finished. They are alive, developing, and communicating in their own way. The tissue from which the current being is formed is intertwined with those past reincarnations and unconsciously takes characteristics, activities, and intuitions from them, resorting to their own deposit of past personalities. In greater terms, all of your reincarnational lives happen at once. What you think of as the past and future are simply other dimensions of the present moment. You are as much a part of your future lives as you are of your past lives. These lives are not separate from you, but part of the same identity, playing themselves out in different fields. Just as your body has many cells, so the greater you is composed of many lives. The so-called memories of past existences are not just memories. They are present, vital, and alive within you. They affect your choices, your abilities, your creativity, and your dreams. Intuitions that seem to come from nowhere often arise from the experiences of these other selves. So your present personality is not isolated. It is the result of a vast interplay of many existences, each lending its own knowledge and energy to what you are now. Sometimes memories of previous lives surface, but you do not recognize them as such. They may appear in the form of fantasies, or be projected into artistic creations. Many writers of historical works, for example, are able to write with such detail because they once lived in those times. This intercommunication sometimes rises into awareness, though you may not recognize it for what it is. These cases show the strong connection and communication between the present self and the unconscious, which allows those memories to rise to awareness in a way that enriches today's life. Often the true source of this material hovers just below consciousness, so that you, at some level, know where it truly comes from. In the same way, experiences from other reincarnations often emerge in dreams, frequently in a dramatic form. This interplay between lives also expresses itself symbolically within you, through the balance of masculine and feminine forces. Each person lives both male and female lives. As a rule, conscious memory of these is not retained. To prevent an over-identification with the present sex, within the male there resides an inner personification of femaleness. This personification of femaleness in the male is the true meaning of what Jung called the anima. The anima in the male is therefore the psychic memory and identification of all the previous female existences in which the inner self has been involved. It contains the knowledge of the present male's past female histories, and the intuitive understanding of all the female qualities with which the personality is innately endowed. The The animus is the hidden male within the woman. Again, however, this represents the male lives with which the self has been involved. The young boy, the priest, the aggressive jungle man, and the wise old man. These are types, representing generally and symbolically past male lives lived by present women. Through anima and the animus, present personalities are able to draw upon the knowledge, intuitions, and background derived from past existences as the opposite sex. The characteristics of the animus provide the necessary drive, the active force that brings the personality outward into physical activity and sustains the creative products that the anima has nurtured. The anima represents the inner orientation that is essential, the meditative, loving, intuitive, and introspective qualities, the inward focus from which creativity springs. The word passive is poor to describe the anima because it suggests a lack of movement, which is not at all the case. The anima allows itself to be acted upon, but only because of its deep desire and need to attune to other powerful forces. Its willingness to yield is as strong as its opposite impulse to rest. The total being is, of course, the sum of these qualities and more. In simple terms, the whole self contains both masculine and feminine characteristics, tuned together in balance, so that true identity can emerge. This cannot fully happen in physical life, where one set of traits must dominate over the other. There are many reasons why this division of characteristics was adopted in your dimension. It relates to the particular way humanity has chosen to evolve and develop its abilities. The projection of the anima, the hidden feminine aspect, by a man onto his relationships is quite natural. It not only helps him understand those relationships more deeply, but also connects him with his other feminine existences. The same is true for a woman's projection of the animus onto her male relatives and friends. The reality of anima and animus goes far beyond what Jung imagined. Symbolically, the two together represent the total self, with all its capacities, tendencies, and desires. Together they serve as an unconscious stabilizing force, operating not only within the individual, but also within civilization itself. You cannot fully understand the personality you know without recognizing the true significance of the anima and the animus. Reincarnation does not progress in a neat, orderly, one life after another sequence. What you call past lives and future lives are all simultaneous, occurring at once in the spacious present. From your viewpoint, reincarnation may seem like a line of lives following one another. But from a greater perspective, these lives are like points on a circle, happening together, each influencing the others. Each personality adapts the laws of reincarnation to its own needs. The experiences of successive reincarnations form part of the structure of the being. They are one aspect of the multidimensional reality of the living psyche. Each life is a different expression of the same greater being. The present self is built from the substance of those past reincarnations, unconsciously drawing on their characteristics, skills, and intuitions, reaching into its own reservoir of past personalities. Death is not an end, and birth is not a beginning. They are simply changes of focus within consciousness. The personality is not destroyed, nor does it vanish, but continues in other dimensions, even as new lives are begun. The boundaries between your lives are not fixed. They are porous. Knowledge, inspiration, and creativity can pass from one existence to another. Dreams, intuitions, and sudden insights often represent bleed-throughs from other incarnations. What you learn in one life contributes to the development of the whole self. The structure of reincarnations is a psychological one. It cannot be understood in any other way. The distortions and interpretations that have been built around it are natural, given your practical experience of time. The reality, the validity, the immediacy of those other lives exists simultaneously with your present life. The distance between one life and another exists only psychologically, not as years or centuries. Yet the psychological distance can be far greater. There are certain lives, just as there are certain events in this life, that you may not wish to face or resolve. In some cases, the temperamental differences between your personality in one life and another are so great that your present self cannot easily relate to the experiences of that other self. You will feel more drawn to those lives you call past, that in some way reaffirm your present one. You know that your past memories are scarce. You remember little of your early childhood, yet you make constant use of what you learned then. And although those experiences are part of you, you do not consciously recall them. In the same way, you do not consciously know your existences in other reincarnations. The pattern of reincarnations is open and flexible. Diversity is built into it, and each whole self has its own unique characteristics. A being may live its lives as it chooses, within certain broad guidelines. It may live a series of female or male existences, though such choices have their disadvantages. There are no strict rules governing sexual development through incarnations, except that both sides of experience must be lived, and the qualities of both must be developed. This does not mean an equal number of male and female lives must be experienced. Some find development easier in one sex than the other. In such cases, more opportunities will be needed to experience the sex that poses greater difficulty. The roles of animus and anima become more significant when a series of lives is chosen in the same sex. Their original pattern comes from the whole self, the source prior to reincarnation. The animus and anima are born with the individual in the first physical life, serving as inner reminders of the personality's basic unity. This is one reason for the powerful psychic charge behind these symbols, and for the sense of divine quality they can transmit and project. The male admires the anima, because in the deep unconscious, it represents those other characteristics of the total self, latent qualities that at once wait to be expressed and struggle toward release. The tension between the two creates balance. It tempers aggression with creativity, or turns aggression into a creative force. The lives you call reincarnations are truly present alternatives. There is a constant interaction between you and yourselves in other reincarnations. A constant action flows from one side to the other. In other words, those selves are not dead. Your difficulty in understanding this comes from the fact that you automatically think in terms of one life at a time, unfolding in a linear pattern. Yet speaking in your terms, a self from another reincarnation can sometimes be aware of your environment and even take part in your relationships. Certain present events can trigger these interactions. At the same time, while that personality interacts with you or through you, it may also be experiencing other levels of existence. Because time as you perceive it is infinite, you can also influence what you call past reincarnations. And at times, you may even react to their environments. This usually occurs during sleep, but often it happens just below waking consciousness, and you forget it when you turn your attention back to daily tasks. Strong emotional associations can often trigger such exchanges. The common explanation of reincarnation as one life after another is a myth. But it is a useful myth, because it allows many to partially grasp facts that they would otherwise ignore, bound as they are to the idea of time's continuity. Reincarnation is, in truth, a tool used by personalities. Each uses it in a different way. I hope this information helps you, and always remember, you hold immense power within, far beyond the physical world. You are here to awaken to it. Thank you for listening.